So these young quarterbacks, you got to give them time. You got to give them time. So I was like, everybody's already crunched Shedeur, pretty much for a half of a game. We'll see how it goes after a full game. Probably get it again. JJ McCarthy is getting it, being bad with passes or whatever. And I made a video that I was like, he's not too different than where Caleb Williams was last year in the same way. That's like, oh man, he's just throwing passes way over people, stuff that's easy. I was like, Bo Nix is not necessarily doing really great on. I was like, not doing really great on the Broncos either. I was like, a lot of times they're winning game mainly from the defense, but the offense is also not showing their end either until pretty much McCarthy a little bit in the fourth quarter. I was like Spencer Rattler. He's already been. I was like, he didn't already taken this whole seat. Or whatever. I thought was playing decent for what the sorry team of the Saints is. I was like, Shuck might already be out. I was like, this would be his year. Rest of the year to show whatever he got, and he could be. I was like, they could already be drafting another quarterback. In that whole thing, Michael Penix has had times this year where people have criticized how he's passing the ball and not doing necessarily all that he needs to do in order to get the job done. And had really other good games. Now I was like Jaden Daniels. I was like, now he's in question because all this stuff talking about his frail body and whatnot is all now becoming in question. Even though he had a really great phenomenal rookie year, that's like, hey, he might have brittle body, but hey, you're just gonna have to deal with that. Almost like how the Cincinnati Bengals are just you're just going to deal with if Burrow's going to be able to do this or not. Now Drake May, he's having a phenomenal second year. But his first year, it wasn't that great. Now, I will say, he's probably the only one that hasn't had any type of questions about whether he's really the guy at all, which, I was like, it's a little bit surprising, just because I'm like, everybody else, Bo Nix showed a little bit of a promise. I was gonna say Jaden Daniels showed all of the promise, but he's even getting questions now. And I was like, but we can even go back a little bit further. Of Bryce Young, pretty much. I was like, until this record-setting, game he had, I was like, he's been getting criticized all year, even when the Panthers have been winning, which, and I was like, with some quarterbacks that matter, some quarterbacks that don't. We all just sort of pick. I was like, narrative describe a lot of these things, or whatever. I was like, look, because we're already past the Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Trey Lance of it all, Trevor Lawrence questions. I was like, so they're sort of already. Mac Jones is sort of resurging his career. Trevor Lawrence, like I said, there's questions. I like Justin Fields. He's pretty much done. Trey Lance, he got a backup job on the Chargers. We'll see how that all goes. But the fact is that a lot of these quarterbacks are 1, 2, 3 years removed. Now, I do think that by year 3, you have a good placement of what the quarterback should be. Problem is that, guess what? With some of these quarterbacks, like Bo Nix, was thrown immediately out there. And he has a really good head coach. So you are able to determine a little bit differently than, say, Bryce Young, who is his first coach gone. I was like, that coach gone. I was like, and he went Canales for a second year, and look how they're doing. They're doing a lot better. I was like, sort of sticking with things. I was like, but we have gotten to the point now with some of these young quarterbacks, and I think this is sort of where. I was like, where the narrative that, hey, everybody's more talented now than yesteryear, and I was like, true, but now it's at the point that now we ain't got time to, unless you got some eye-popping things off the charts, we could just find another one like you, and we're so quick that, guess what, we're sorry, we're back at the top of the draft. So guess what, whatever you're not doing, we really need to see it early. Or whatever like that. Like Drake May, he get by because I was like, he big. I was like, he can run. They even know he don't really do so. Got a great arm. I was like Daniels. Throw the deep ball, I was like, he could run, but I would like asterisk for about it. Caleb Williams, you could see the talent and everything that he had on display when he could wiggle away out of like pass rushers, throw it down the field with ease and all that other stuff. We could see a lot of this stuff with some of them, but I think we don't know how to really criticize and or figure out whether these quarterbacks are it or not. And yes, this has been a thing throughout all the years that drafting a quarterback is, whether it's a situation, whether it's the talent, what is the makeup of the guy, what is the makeup of the team, where is the team at, what are the weapons and all this other stuff. That's why you get someone like Baker Mayfield that had a whole bunch of problems in Cleveland, gets cut. I was like, go to Carolina. Carolina's garbage. He's garbage. But go to the Rams. The Rams got a good coach and a good team. Looks really good. Go to Tampa Bay. Great weapons. I was like, now all of a sudden, looks like he done resurrect his whole thing. Sam Darnold, Jets, garbage. But they are also garbage. I was like, then San Francisco. He doesn't ever really get to play. But I was like, but the system there, good head coach, all that other stuff. Guess what? When he goes to the Vikings, another good head coach, talented wide receivers. I was like, looks great. Now he with Seattle. I was like, none of the circumstance where they got really talented. I was like a really talented wide receiver, stuff like that. But now like it clicks in for him, even if Daniel Jones. You could say so. Are we just at the point now where? I was like, where you kind of like, the thing is, it used to be able to keep the quarterback for at least about 3 to 5 years before you're like, all right, that's it, we're done with this. Now, you sort of really only got like a 2-year window with a lot of these quarterbacks, and it's like, should we just go ahead and draft another one? And the problem with that is now they all end up in the same situation because guess what? You keep on drafting a quarterback and like fast enough, you're not replenishing anything on the roster that needs to with all this either. So now you're putting them in the same sorry ass situation. So how good is Bryce Young? How good is Bo Nix? How good is Penix? I was like, especially because a lot of these guys aren't playing their first year, or they're getting in half of the year. Then they come in the next year, and it's like, okay, it's not taking off with a rocket. All of a sudden, he's not the guy. I think this is over. The experiment's over. It's like he hadn't even had a full season of games, and you're already saying that we're done with this. And I was like, I get it if like the guy ain't up here necessarily making it happen. I ain't talking about necessarily smart, but like the will, the coming in, and doing all that type of crap, which by now most of them are doing. I was like, everybody sort of got a playbook now of how to. Nowadays, you look from 8, you pretty much got a playbook on how to do this. So that's not even really too much of a question anymore. Now it's on talent and just the belief, do the coach stay long enough as well? There's so many things. I was like, for all the crap that Jalen Hurts gets, there's actually also credit to him that he always gets a new offensive coordinator every year. And still is able to do a good job of winning. I was like, win on the team. And also on the GM for making sure that, hey, we're also going to have enough playmakers and stuff around him to where we don't have to try to figure this out or whatever. We can have a good quarterback to play with everything else that we got. We got everything else around him or whatever. Because not everybody gets to do that or will survive all that. So I was like, it's weird because I was like, while the talent for the quarterbacks all seem to be around the same. I was like, we done made it. So it's almost like the NBA with the level of like 3-point shooting and letting the offense do more and stuff like that. I was like, judging these guys really is kind of sticking to a plan and having faith, because like you're not, now granted we're not going to have too many, Dak Prescott's. We'll see what Shador does. I was like, Tom Brady's such an outlier. You don't really have Tony Romo, an outlier. You're not really having too many of these quarterbacks that are coming in from like round, I want to say 3 or lower, and doing this in a way that's like, oh, you got to, like, you stick around and have a starting career. Most of them are just like, oh yeah, you might start here and there, get your chance here. You're gonna be maybe a backup, still stay long in the league or whatever. So it's not like anybody's time. Kind of like once you get to those picks, you're going to trade. You're going to get another quarterback. So I was like, some of them got grace because they got the first round attachment to them. But it is just, I was like, but it's just kind of hard. I think it's harder now, when you would think it'd be easier than back then, where it's like somebody signs a contract, you had to stick with it for about 10 years because that's how that's how much that contract is. Now it's like, before we give this guy the big money, is he the guy? And I feel like a lot of teams are, while you would think that make it easier, being like, oh, we should just stick with this guy for 5 years because why not? We don't have to really pay him until really then. You're also at the point where it's like, nah, let's go ahead and just get rid of this guy before that even comes up, and we even have to think about trying to pay a middle pack-ish quarterback big time money just because it's his time. So I was like, and I think that has really made it harder to also figure out if these quarterbacks are it or not. Kind of like I said, you don't get enough time to figure out to put things around him in order to see this guy. Like the Patriots did a great job of making sure we're gonna give him Diggs, McCollins, along with the young receivers. Get him an offensive tackle. Like they made sure that it's like, we're gonna find out if he's the guy. We're gonna find out if he's the guy. I was like, Caleb Williams getting the offensive coordinator. I was like, coordinator Ben Johnson to a head coach, figuring out if he's the guy. Now I was like, we're doing it. I was like, Bo Nix is in a situation where you got the head coach, the Hall of Fame head coach, that is going to be on you. It's going to be looking on you. I was like, they got Sutton, they got Mims, they got some weapons. It's going to be on you. Mr. Rattler, sorry, you got the bad luck of the draw. I was like, you're a 5th round pick, sorry ass team, new coach as well. You just got the bad luck of the draw in that case. McCarthy, it's going to be on you. And I want to say, I was like, one more year, it's going to be on you because you got the coach that everybody's like, look what he did when all these other coaches did. You can't do anything. So I was like, so some of the circumstances, you got a shorter leash than others. I was like, depending on who you are, also, obviously. But yeah, I was like, we got to figure out a better way of figuring out if the quarterbacks are it or not, other than just simply like. It'd be one thing if we were saying like, oh, they didn't have it this week or whatever, or I was like, they played bad. But the fact that it's like it's even coming into question so quick in their, I was like, early career, that's why you have sometimes the gaps of like, oh, Allen, Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Herbert. I was like, Dak, Jalen. That's when you start, it starts shuffling around. I'm like, there's a gap, because I was like, they're coming in, you're spitting them out, and I was like, so fast that you don't even have time to see if they're really, I was like, how good of a quarterback they could be. Yeah, I was like, another whole quarterback thing as well too, where it's like, might end up being like my counter argument to giving them more time. But till then, peace. I'm out.